Good morning, guys. Today is January 12th, 2017. It is a sleet and ice storm going on. I am a nervous wreck. I feel like my heart is going to pound out of my chest. In 2008, going into 2009, I was in a really bad car accident on my way back from some training at the police academy down in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And I drove home in an ice storm, and I hit a patch of black ice, and I spun down I-57 about 8 times and went through a ravine. I ripped out the complete bottom of a 4x4 pickup truck. I went through a frontage road and ended up in a farm field, and there was barbed wire everywhere. When the police rolled up, they thought that for sure it was going to be a fatality, because the way they explain it to me is usually when they respond to a call here, that is what it is for. So needless to say that I have not been the same since, and I really work on trying to get over it. But when it is storming, lightning, when I have a hard time seeing, excuse me, like right now, the roads are so icy that there were cars and ditches everywhere. And, you know, people want to drive like a-holes when it's like that, which makes it even worse for me. And my nerves are completely on edge. I have to figure out a way of trying to get over this. You know, I'm going to try and calm myself down and finish my coffee before I go into school and start my day. But I just figured I'd get on here and tell you guys what's going on. So if anybody is up here in Illinois or wherever you're watching and the weather is bad, please be careful. Take your time. It took me an hour. I left my house at 5:25 and I did not get to school until 6:30. It is now 6:33. It took me an hour to get here, and it usually takes me 35 minutes. It was so dangerous today, guys. So please, 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 I'm begging you to be careful. And I hope my son watches this video and keeps his behind at home, because, you know, he likes to be out and about, and I personally am nervous when he's out on the road. I know he's a grown man. I know he's 22 years old, almost 23, and I know he can make his own decisions. But until we figure out why he has seizures and what triggers them, I don't think adding any new elements to the equation should help. So hopefully he stays home, but if I know him the way I know him, he's not going to. Okay, guys, since I brought up my son, let's talk about him. Let me let you know what's going on. This video might be a little bit shorter, and then again, once I get to talking, I tend to ramble on a little bit. So let me explain some of my background a little bit when it comes to him. And this is just a very small, brief thing. I will go into more detail at another time, but I actually have to go into the school shortly. Okay, in about June of 2012, my son had, well, we'll go back a little bit further. In about October of 2011, my son moved down to Florida with one of his cousins, and they were actually doing some work down there. My son did geothermal for a living, so they were going down there and they were going to start a business and so on and so forth. Well, needless to say, he went down there, and, you know, he was having a good time, and he was in the prime. He was 18 years old. Actually, he was 17. He turned 18 in February that year. So he was down there, and, you know, he was having fun, and they were racing motorcycles, and, you know, like, he was really into racing cars, motorcycles, like on a track, not in the street. I'm sure he did it in the street as well, but, you know, it was kind of like one of his passions, something he truly enjoyed. So he called me from Florida in about July, and he says, "Mom, you know what? I've been having some pain in my hip. I went to the doctor. They said they feel like," hold on one second. Okay, sorry, one of the maintenance guys needed me to move my car. So I'm not sure exactly where I left off, but I will continue anyway. Okay, so in about June or July, he called me and said, "Mom, I have some pain in my hip. I went to the doctor. They said I have a small hernia, but not to worry about it." I said, "Okay, well, you know, you got to be a little bit careful. You can't be pushing yourself, you know." And he was working, and he was still doing so on and so forth. So then he actually called me at the end of July and asked me, he's like, Mom, I think I want to come home and go to the doctors by you and see what's going on, because this pain is getting worse and, you know, I'm having a hard time with it. So in August, he came home with all his belongings, and he's like, I think I'm just going to move back up here. I'm not feeling so great. I was like, perfect, no problem. I picked him up. I met him in Indianapolis and brought him back up here. At the time, we were living in Oak Lawn, I think. So I get him up here and we start going to the doctor and so on and so forth. And they said, yes, it looks like it might be a small hernia. It's just in the groin, nothing really to worry about. You know, when they're this small, they can subside. But now, okay, he's not feeling well at the same time. So the time is going by. It's now, you know, that was in August, and now here it is September, and he's like really struggling to put weight on it. And I was like, well, you know, let's go back to another doctor. And they also said, you know, they agreed with the previous doctors. I don't know why it is doctors feel a need to go with the same diagnosis that the doctor previous to, because I think they're afraid everybody's going to give them lawsuits. Wow, this raindrops on the window are making me look like I have age spots all over. Trust me, I don't. But anyway, in September, my son is in so much pain. He could barely put weight on his feet, only on the left side. And it's like something has got to be wrong. Well, we went to the doctor, and again, the same thing. And then now here it is in October, the beginning of October. And he's coming to my room and he's crying that he's in so much pain, so much pain, so much pain. I had to call an ambulance. Now, mind you, my son is 6 foot tall and 200 pounds. That's too big for me. So I end up calling an ambulance. They take him to the hospital. Needless to say, they told me to my face. Now, mind you, at the time I was still a police officer. They told me to my face that they believe my son has a drug problem and that he is wanting pain medication, and that they didn't feel comfortable giving it to him. They sent him home with Percocet. And I understand that's a strong medication, but it wasn't working. Now, mind you, at this time, my mom has been in and out of the hospital, and at one point, my mom was kind of out of it. She was somewhat in lucid, or not lucid. She was just not in her mind. She was basically suffering. She had COPD. She had cancer, breast, cervical, uterine. She had so many different things that were going on with her, and she just didn't want to fight anymore. Here it is, about October 10th. My mom, me and my son went up to visit my mom. My son was on crutches at this point because he couldn't put weight on his foot, and he was taking his pain medication. We go to see my mom, and my mom is kind of like in a euphoric state of mind, and she's telling me, watch your baby, because there's something wrong with him. There's something really wrong with him. You need to watch your baby. You know, I don't know how you believe, but I believe that when somebody is in that state of mind and they're not really aware of what they're saying, they kind of know what they're talking about. At least in this case, she did. So, I ended up taking my son back to the hospital. They did an MRI and a CAT scan, and his hip was glowing on it. And they told me it looked like my son has osteomyelitis. That is a bone infection. I didn't think anything of it because my mom had a bone infection. And okay, so now I know what this is, and I know it can happen. But at first, I was like, they got to be crazy. This can't be. But they're the doctors. I'm not. They ended up putting a PICC line in him and sending him home. Now, during this time, my mom, October 21st, passed away. And we went to her wake. My son had his PICC line, and he was hiding it. He really didn't want anybody to know. And at that time, my son was already had it in for a couple weeks, and he's at home doing his own IVs and taking care of himself, trying to get better. Meanwhile, he's still in so much pain. He's still on crutches. It got so bad that my son ended up being in a wheelchair. But when my mom passed away, we went home that night, October 21st, and 2 nights went by. I'm trying to still take care of my son, but meanwhile my heart is breaking as I just buried my mom. And November 1st, my son drug himself to my bedroom door and was banging, screaming, crying. The pain was so bad. I ended up having him taken back into the hospital, and they increased all the medication and said that not enough of the medication is showing up in his blood work. They put him on a higher pain medication. They sent us back home. His home health care nurse came out, and this was now the day after Thanksgiving, and she said, "Shirley, there is something seriously wrong with your son. By now, he's been on this medication for 6 weeks. He should be doing so much better. I want you to take him to the University of Chicago. I want you to take him there now. That's where I'm sending his blood work." So we were going to St. James all this time. So we go to the University of Chicago the day after Thanksgiving. They kept my son in the ER in an isolation room for 36 hours while they tried to find a room for him. There was no way they were going to let us take him home. He was on so much pain medication that it probably would have put an elephant down. But the doctors believed him. They believed that he was still in pain. They never said that he was abusing drugs like the other hospital has. You know, the other hospital has degraded him so badly that he was almost afraid to go to another hospital because he didn't want to be labeled like that. So needless to say, we get admitted into University of Chicago, Comer's Hospital. They asked us, did we want to go pediatric or adult? And I was told that pediatric would have been better. And I'm grateful we went that way. My son got admitted into the hospital, and on, a lot of testing and a lot of bad things had happened. I'm gonna do another video on him completely, and I kind of want to have him in on the video so that we can conversate in front of the camera and show you guys exactly what was going on. So needless to say, so much testing is going on, and they couldn't tell us. It took them from the day after Thanksgiving until December 20th to tell us that my son had cancer. Now, we thought it was maybe a stage 1 or stage 2, just local, one center area. It ended up being stage 4. I felt like I was hit with a bat in my chest, in my heart, that it was ripped out of my body. I couldn't breathe, but I could only do that for a second. I had to pull it together and be strong for my son. October 20th, he was diagnosed. December 20th, he was diagnosed. December 21st, we started treatment. My son was in the hospital until New Year's Eve. So from the day after Thanksgiving until New Year's Eve, my son was in the hospital that entire time. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to work and take care of things. I buried my mother. I never really had the chance to grieve her. Things just kept happening, one thing after another, after another, after another. I was in a bad relationship that I should have gotten out of back then, and I ended up staying in it until 2014, just because I didn't have the strength inside myself to get out of it. That's another video, and I'll touch on that one at a later time too. So needless to say, I'm going through all these stresses, and my son started his treatment on December 21st, December 25th, Christmas. My son had his first grand mal seizure, and he has not been the same since. So all this is going on. He's starting to have seizures. He's still not feeling great. He has no strength. They did an EKG on him. They told us now at this time, they're telling us, and this had to be maybe January 15th-ish, somewhere in there, because he's just not recovering. They're telling me now my son has heart failure, but they believe it's from the chemo and radiation. And they tell me that they don't expect it to progress. Okay, that's a little bit of relief for me, but they still have to continue to treat him, which is still going to affect his heart, and it's still going to affect the seizures. It's still affecting his brain. It's affecting his body. It's affecting me as it's affecting my son. Needless to say, my son went into remission in March. He still had to go through all his radiation and everything else like that. I am giving you guys a very brief detail of what happened. They expected my son to make a full recovery, and as all I can tell you is he has not. My son still suffers from a seizure disorder. His heart failure has progressed. The chemo radiation had affected his brain to the point that he has difficulties reading and comprehending. He knows everything he used to know. He knows how to do everything he used to know how to do. He struggles with reading and understanding new things. So it takes a lot of time for him to understand a lot of new things. That is currently what I'm working with now, and this has all been 2013, 14, 15, 16. Now we're in 2017, and we're still trying to make the best of this and learn from it. My son has done some great things, and I'll get into that at another video. I just wanted to touch on it because I brought him up with his conditions in driving in this weather. So that was just a very brief summary. Let me know if you want to hear more about it. It's time for me to get my butt into work. I start in 5 minutes. I usually am in there already and set up, but I just wanted to get this off my chest and tell you guys what's going on. I can hear the ice on my car. Can you hear it? I don't know if you can, but it's literally ice drops falling all over, not raindrops. So I hope you guys have a great and blessed day. I'm going to get into work. I'm going to edit this video. I'm going to pop some video or some pictures in of me and my son as we were going through the progress. Let me know if it's something you want me to discuss in detail. Let me know if you want me to tell you how I coped with it. Let me know. And I'm also going to tell you how my job has helped me with it and how this has led me into doing charity work and giving back. There's so much that has gone on, and I'm loving doing these videos, and I definitely want to share this information with you. So right now I'm going to go in. It is 6:51. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good and blessed day. This video will probably not get up until about 12-ish because I have to do some editing on it, and I'm doing it on my phone, which makes it even more difficult. So I'm trying to learn this whole YouTube, and as I learn my videos, I'm sure will get better. But for right now, I will talk to you guys later. Have a good and blessed day. Bye.